order of precedence. Now, something that's important when it comes to the order of precedence is that you need to know in what order it is to know what's going to be applied to the sheet. And the order is, and we're basically talking about the order of the external style sheet, the internal style sheet, and the inline. So I mentioned earlier the differences between them. Earlier, this line 5 is the code that you need to refer back to a page that has a .css extension. You're actually assigning this page with all of that code to this page that you're creating here. And notice how I changed the name to new1.css because referring to that page. Now, now that's the external way. Then we have the internal style sheet, which is the inside of the page. And then remember, we have the inline style sheet, which is just right here. It's in the line. Now, the importance of precedence is that, well, let's say that you're assigning a color here, you're assigning navy here, but then paragraphs, you're also assigning a color up here, let's say. I'm going to go ahead and just change this to paragraph. And let me go ahead and, oh, well, let me just leave it like that. Paragraph would be red. And actually, what I could do to show you is just put another regular paragraph that doesn't have the style on it. No inline, I'll call it. And I'll also put this has inline. Okay, so now we have two paragraph tags. This one has the inline and this one doesn't. So this one should be navy, and this one should actually be the red color. Okay, so let's go ahead and save, and then we're going to refresh. Okay, so we have two paragraphs. This one is navy and this is red. So remember again the order of precedence. Well, if this right here says the paragraph is red, well, this paragraph, since this is closer to the actual text that needs to be changed, this takes precedence over the internal style sheet, this top part here, because this style is closer to the text than this code is. Okay, so that's why that first line wasn't read. But then what if you had a style sheet that's external, and let's say you didn't want it navy, you wanted the text to be, let's say, yellow. Okay, and if I were to save and refresh that, would it work? Well, no, because at this point, you have already stated that the paragraph is going to be read in the internal, and then the inline style sheet is going to be navy. So basically, both of these lines are ignoring the external because it already has an inline and an internal style sheet. So basically, the thing to remember is that the closest it is to the text is what's going to take precedence or priority. So since this one is closer to the text, it's going to ignore this one, and it's going to ignore this one. Now on this paragraph tag, it doesn't have the inline, so it's going to go ahead and do the internal, but not the external, because the external is the one that's the furthest from the text. So I hope that makes sense. Internal is close, or the inline is the closest. Then we have the internal, which is on the same page, so it's a little closer. And then the external is on a whole different document, so that's the furthest away, or at least the least likely to be applied. So, and just know that it is a possibility. Let's say that you always want your paragraphs to be red, but for some reason, this is a very special paragraph. It needs to be navy for whatever reason. So just keep that in mind, that it is important to know which one is going to be applied. Okay. So that's the order of precedence. And again, the book lists them here. Here's the external, here's the internal, and then we have on the in the actual line right here, the end line. So there, just, oh, and also know too that it's good to know too that even though we have precedence of the different types of cascading style sheets, we have the external, the internal, and the inline. Just also know that people can make changes on their browser, or maybe they have an accessibility program. So they're, just because you know, it looks good on yours, it might not look so great on theirs, but you know, just be sure that you know the precedent of your code. But this is just a table that describes, you know, what would take precedence depending on, or showing the different options of browsers and accessibility programs. Okay, so that's it for the chapter, but I do want to mention too is that this is really good because these are additional slides, but this one's nice because it actually lists all the different options that we have for cascading style sheets and the different things that you can change. So, you know, and we'll be looking at more of these. We'll be looking at borders, we'll be looking at some spacing, margins, padding. That's for next chapter. But these are all the different options that you can change for different things. So if you're interested in one of them, you know, you just click on it and uh, it'll give you more information about that. So you can make some really cool pages there. Okay. Also, one thing I wanted to mention, you're welcome, is that now that we are a little bit further into HTML, you can actually look at pages. Remember, I showed you like one of the very first classes, if you right click on a page and do view page source, you can see all the code in the browser of whatever page you're on. So if I were to go to google.com and then right click and view page source, this is all the code that they have. And it's not easy to read, but that is the code that they have. Here's your doc type. And it's probably because they use that program to compress everything to save loading times. But let's look at Alamo. Okay, let's look at the scholarships page. So I could remind you that, oh, never mind. Priority deadline was April 5th, but the final deadline is September 5th, so you still have time. Highly recommend you doing that. Let's view page source. Now this one's a bit easier to read, and this is the alamo.edu website. We have your doc type, we have your HTML, we have your head. Here's an open script tag. Here's title. There's some meta tags. There's your open script. There should be okay, there's more scripts in here. So you see a lot of open and close. There's the head tag. And they should be, okay, here, .js. So there's some script with JavaScript. I don't see any CSS, which is interesting. Okay, it could be in the JavaScript. Oh, here it is, a style sheet. It just doesn't have .css for whatever reason. But yeah, and here's the body tags. So yeah, very interesting that now you know what websites are created with. Here's the devs that we know. Here's a class. They're assigning a class to it, class content, class alert list. Here's some list items. So everything that we've been learning, these are actually applied in all websites. The only thing we really haven't covered is, well, there's a lot of stuff we haven't covered, but JavaScript, there's responsive, there's, then of course, you know, you log into your email, so then you're gonna have interaction with a database that holds your login and password information and then provides the list of classes or whatever else you need to access with your login. So I think this is really cool. Here's an image. You can actually see what folder they have their images in. So yeah, cool stuff. And you know this now.